Hi, Mark here from the Tangent-Bound Podcast Network and host of the flagship show, the Tangent-Bound Podcast. Did you know that we over at Tangent-Bound are always looking for amazing podcasts to promote? And did you also know that we are also proud nerds and geeks of everything from movies, music, gaming, TV shows, and comic books to wrestling, MMA, soccer, and football? Whatever you can nerd or geek out about, we've got it. And if you're interested, we can help you find it. And if you're a show looking for a place to call home, we've got you covered. Side effects may include upset stomach, dizziness, tumors, shakes, and in some rare cases, death from excessive laughter. Though to be fair, it's only sometimes. Other side effects may include diarrhea, gallstones, heart palpitations, and strong desire for cookies on the dark side. Talk to your doctor and visit TangentBoundNetwork.com and see if Tangent-Bound Network is right for you.
This is a Danger Entertainment podcast. DangerEntertainment.net's Danger Entertainment Podcast Network.
Transmission commencing.
This is Wookiee Radio. Translated for the Wookiee impaired. I like that Wookiee. Your hosts, Ken, Derek, and Mike, bring you the latest news and commentary from the far reaches of the galaxy.
Hold it. Hold it. I said hold it.
Subscribe today on iTunes and Stitcher.
I just assumed it's a Wookiee.
Start listening today, and remember,
the Force will be with you, always.
We're not doctors, therapists, trained professionals of any kind, so if you feel you do need help, please reach out and get the help you need. We have a whole list of things on our files page over on Facebook at facebook.com/crazylifepodcast, and or just search on the internet for the suicide prevention hotline number, or go to NAMI.org, or whatever resource you can find. But just please reach out for help if you need it. If you feel as though you're going to harm yourself or others, definitely reach out and try not to be alone. Also, if you feel that way and you realize that you're writing a note or making plans of how you would do, like harm yourself or others, definitely reach out. That's a huge red flag. And lastly, please do not replace the idea of therapy with listening to this show. Again, if you need help, please reach out and get the help that you need, or contact us. We can try to help you find the help that you need.
Life sucks to the last drop. Are you gonna blow your head off? Take good aim and don't forget to duck. Life sucks every Monday and all the way to Sunday, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I don't care how you're doing, what's up or how's it hanging. I'd like to buy this world one last drink. Life sucks all of the time, so stick it up your sunshine, and then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day.
Welcome to The Crazy Life, everyone. My name is Jen. I am your hostess for the evening. And with me, as always, we have Brian.
Howdy.
And no Henno. Sad face.
Yep.
Yep. Now, Henno unfortunately got double booked tonight, so he won't be able to join us. But hopefully he'll be with us next week. And of course, he gets to go first. Ha-ha.
Yep, that's true. And he will listen, so he'll get to hear your ha-ha there, too. So, yeah.
I know. I'm bad about listening back. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Yeah, whatever.
Anyway, well, we can get the ball rolling here. Do you want to start, or do you want to finish? It's up to you, sir.
I don't care. Doesn't matter to me.
Well, I'll get us kicking off, I guess.
Okay.
I'll start this week. So it's been an interesting week. Let's start with, I'm trying to go back in time. It's always difficult. But let's start with New Year's Eve. So I ended up working because New Year's Eve was on a Tuesday, and I ended up working on that Monday, and then Tuesday I left work a little early. Ended up going out with a friend on New Year's Eve night, and I will be honest, I'm very ashamed of myself. I had a very good time until I didn't.
Right.
I need to openly apologize, and try to make some amends to the poor Uber driver, because we did Uber.
Yeah.
I guess let me take you back a little bit before we get to that part. So my girlfriend and I ended up going to a couple different places. We ended up going to downtown to the city that's close to us, where there's some bars and stuff. So we ended up going to a place called Hamburger Mary's, which was a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah. I saw they just opened that place, I think.
Yep.
Yeah.
They did. And it is, it's a drag queen cafe.
Right.
Type of a situation where, I mean, it's just like burgers and fries and, some food. And then there's a drag queen show that happens every hour on the hour, where they entertain and they sing and dance, and they go to table to table and stuff, and they interact with the crowd, and it's just a lot of fun. It's a very fun place. I started out there and I had a couple drinks. Everything was good. Then we went to another local place called the Dirty Bird.
Mm-hmm.
Had another drink, which was good. That place wasn't really happening, so we went to another place. That one was it was very much a Goldilocks night. First place wasn't busy enough. Second place was way too busy.
Mm-hmm.
Third place was way too young. And
what was the third place?
The third place was the Tin Cup.
Oh, yeah. Tin Cup is a college bar for sure. I've been there a few times. I love it, but when that place gets busy, it gets crazy busy.
Well, no, the one that got really busy was the Cock and Bull, Ye Old Cock and Bull.
Oh, yeah, right.
So I went to the Dirty Bird, went to the Ye Old Cock and Bull, and Ye Old Cock and Bull, I could barely get to the bar to get a drink.
Yeah.
It was crazy. The Tin Cup was better. But the problem, it was so super young that I felt completely out of place. Not to mention, the only whiskey they had of any decent make was Crown, which I hate Crown.
Yeah.
So.
Well, which makes sense because Tin Cup, for anyone who doesn't know, they are literally like it's like 99% beer there.
Oh, is it?
And it's all. Or tin can, I'm sorry, not Tin Cup, tin can. Because everything is in cans. Like, they don't have bottles of beer. Everything's in cans. So.
Oh, see, I completely missed the whole point of the place.
Yeah,
obviously.
that's the gimmick of the place is, So, yeah, if you're looking for something that isn't beer, it's probably the wrong place to go.
So we didn't last long there.
Yeah.
And then we went back to the Dirty Bird, and we had another drink at the Dirty Bird. So... For me, who's a true drink Sally, if you're keeping count, folks, that's like 6. So I was feeling very well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I'm not sure exactly. I had another drink at the Dirty Bird. I kind of don't remember about 45 minutes in there. Next thing I know, I'm in the Uber, and I end up getting sick. Unfortunately, it was out his window. Thankfully.
Oh, that's good, because otherwise that's like $200.
Yeah.
Yeah, or something like that. Yeah, it's pretty expensive.
We're downside the car, I believe.
Yeah.
And over myself, but it was not in his vehicle.
Right.
You know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
We won't go into graphic details. It was not pretty though, folks.
Right.
So, slipped him some extra money. Can't remember how much I slipped him, but I slipped him some cash.
Right.
My friend told him where to go to get his car cleaned.
Yeah.
and texted my husband, and my husband came and picked me up. The reason is, I'm completely honest on the show, as we all know, brutally so. It is not a place that I like to be when I lose control. I don't think most people feel comfortable there, but I despise it. And the aftermath is not just the hangover, it's the emotional roller coaster I end up going on.
Yeah.
And it lasts a long time. So even after I'm physically feeling better, I'm mentally messed up for quite a bit. And I ended up, so on New Year's Day, I kind of laid low, apologized profusely to my friend for being such a sloppy brat. And she said I wasn't. So she said that, because I even asked, I did my amends. I asked, I said, I apologize. I don't remember some of the evening. If there's anything that I need to apologize for, make amends for, pay for, please let me know, because I want to make things right. If nothing, everything got taken care of. There was no problems. So I said, okay. And so she's good. I was, quote unquote, should be good.
Yeah.
Not so much. So I end up beating myself up for a long time about losing control, about getting sick, about making a joke of myself, and just the usual head stuff. So I worked through a lot of that. I went back to work on Thursday and Friday, and work was pretty good, pretty nice and standard, so that wasn't a big deal. Then the weekend came, and I did pretty well on the weekend. Sunday, I started feeling really weird on Saturday and Sunday. And to the point on Sunday, and this should have been my tip off. On Sunday, my brother-in-law and father-in-law stopped by to pick up some stuff, and we all went out to lunch. And I wasn't expecting to go out to lunch, so I hadn't showered, or I hadn't put my makeup on or anything. And my husband came in and said, we were going out. You want to come with us? And I was hungry, and I'm like, yeah, sure. I just threw a hat on.
Yeah.
In my coat and then left. Not like me right now. Back in the day, that was kind of an old move for me.
Right.
Now I almost always at least attempt to do something with my hair, or I'll take 5 minutes and put some makeup on, or I guess, yeah. I didn't do anything. So we ended up going out and paling around and stuff, and everything went fine. And I looked fine. I mean, I'm not trying to say, I didn't smell, I didn't look too crazy or anything. I was reasonable,
right,
at least. But I just wasn't my normal self. Jumped to Monday night. I got hit because my husband had been off work for 2 weeks as well.
Oh,
and
yeah,
he went back to work this week. So, I think there was just the combination of, and for those who don't know, before I forget to mention, when you're dealing with medicines, mood altering medicine, a majority of them do not react well with alcohol. In fact, they break down almost immediately. When alcohol and the medicine is combined in your system, the alcohol takes out the mood-altering medicine, and it disappears from your system. So any benefit that has is completely flushed away, literally. So, and it takes mood-altering medicine, most of them take about 2 to 3 days to build back up in your system.
Right. So,
that being said, so come Monday night, I think it was kind of a little bit of a perfect storm, where a good friend of mine, who I usually can chat with and talk with, was going through their own stuff, so they weren't available, and my husband wasn't home, and here I am all by myself, feeling really lonely. and pretty darn depressed. And I haven't gotten that place in a long time. And I know I can pinpoint the reasons why.
Yeah.
Doesn't necessarily help the fact that you're in that moment, you know?
Right, yeah.
Even though it's, you know, part of it is self-imposed, you're still stuck, you know, you're still in that situation.
Yeah.
So I ended up using my social media. Woohoo, go social media. For good.
Yeah.
I reached out to the universe, the Twitterverse in this particular case, and mentioned that I needed to talk.
Yeah.
Now, I will say I was not like super dark place. So for those that, you know, are worried, I was still fine. I wasn't like hurt myself situation or that bad.
Right.
I was just a really dark, lonely place, but I wasn't that place. So, I reached out to my Twitterverse and got a really great response back. And I ended up having some really awesome conversations that really can just help me pass the day away.
Yeah.
Or the night away, I should say. And got to the point where I got tired and I was able to go to bed and sleep and stuff. So, which was good. Then came Tuesday and I was still struggling, but I was doing okay. I was still struggling. I made it through work, got home, and then Tuesday night I was feeling better, but I was still pretty dark. So I ended up chatting with some other people and kind of just trying to keep as social as I could online to kind of pass the night and get through.
Yeah.
And then today, I was still feeling rough this morning, and I finally, my friend that I talk with a lot was available, so I ended up chatting with them for a little while in the morning, or this morning, and that helped me to kind of break the cycle a bit. We were talking about a variety of things, and that really helped. And it just, I think I'm finally over the hurdle.
Yeah.
Hopefully. But it was just every so often I go through these points where I forget myself and I forget how bad things get when I do things like lose control and overdrink.
Yeah.
And it just big wake up call, big perspective, you know, maker for me. So it's really kind of helped me get back in line. How I need to, I don't have that luxury. I guess that's it. It's that I don't have that luxury of losing control and going down those paths. You know, I can't do that because the ramifications are really hard on me.
Well, and Tony and I talk about this on, on Salty Language quite a bit, about how every once in a while, you know, one or both of us will, you know, go a little too far with the drink, and how basically, you know, it's like, geez, you know, it's like how we just don't recover, you know, like when we were 20, you know, you get whatever, the next day you have a hangover, but you can still function. And it's like, now it's a couple days worth of that. And then on top of it, like you said, with both of us being, meaning you and I, people who are on medicines for mental illness, you know, it's like we're really not supposed to be drinking. And when we do, like you said, you set yourself back, you know, a day or two on top of the normal feeling like blah after a night of going too far. We've also got that extra element on top of it. So it like you said, it's you realize you get to a point to where, like me, it's like we talked about this a week or two ago on there, that how I was like, I have about 2 drinks most of the time now. Occasionally I'll have a little more, but most of the time I have 1 or 2 and I'm like, I'm done. You know, like because I know it's not worth pushing forward, because that roller coaster that comes with it's just not worth it.
It's not. It really isn't. And I would have had just as much fun, if not maybe even more fun, if I hadn't gone that far.
Yeah. Well,
You know,
and you wouldn't have had the beating yourself up. You wouldn't have had the getting sick in the Uber. So there's those extra elements in there that, along with all the other feelings, but there's those levels as well that you wouldn't have had.
Mm. And it is what it is.
Yeah.
And like I said, I'm over the hump and the hill of it all. So I'm feeling much better than I was, thankfully.
Yeah.
And stuff. And, it's tough because you end up, I'm trying to think how I even want to segue to the second part here of what I want to talk about. The thing with social media, I guess that's where I wanted to go with it, is you have to keep in mind that there's, just like in life, there's a variety of different types of relationships and different friendships and different levels of friendship that you can have.
Mm-hmm.
The beauty of it is that you can, when you need somebody to bounce ideas off of or chat with, more often than not, if you put the bat signal out, they'll come.
Yeah.
And that's the cool part about social media. Now, the people I talked with on Monday, I talked to a couple people I ended up talking with on Tuesday a little bit. I probably may never talk to them again.
Yeah.
Just because we're very different people and, life happens and,
Sure.
Things happen and it is what it is. People that really pulled me out of a dark time and were a huge help to me and were very interesting and lovely people, but are probably just going to be a blip in the life radar.
Right.
There's other people who I've met through social media that I hope are lifelong friends. We'll see.
Yeah.
You never know, but they're people that I'm incredibly close with, and I look for them and they look for me, and it's really an amazing experience. But it's just something to keep in mind that not every relationship is meant to be lifelong.
Yeah.
And I know everybody knows that. It's a pretty standard statement. We all realize that some people come and go out of your lives. But the thing that we don't prepare for is that it still hurts like hell.
Mm-hmm.
When somebody leaves your life unexpectedly for whatever reason. Social media, it's easier than not anymore because of ghosting and all that stuff we've talked about before.
Well, and so, there's just such a breadth of people,
mm-hmm.
like at any one time, there's so many people available that it's easy to, leave someone in behind.
Exactly. And some people do move on to the newest shiny things. Some people don't. I mean, everybody's different. Everybody has different motivations. Everybody has, comes from a different place.
Yeah.
So as difficult as it is to weather through some of that, it's worth it. I think that's the whole point that I wanted to make sure I got across to everybody.
Yeah.
Is it's just worth it. It's worth it to keep your heart open. It's worth it to make these relationships, be them transient relationships or permanent relationships, be it romantic, be it friendship, be it whatever it is. It's worth it to put that effort out there and to put yourself out there and to have those experiences.
Mm.
I made an analogy earlier today that the heart is a muscle, and just like any muscle, it needs to be worked out. Just like every workout, there's an opportunity for you to get injured, to pull the muscle, to rip a muscle.
Right.
It hurts like hell. You have to take time to recover, let your body heal. But then you get back in the gym and you work out some more.
Yeah.
Same thing with the heart. You gotta take your time to heal. Of course, absolutely take your time out as you need it. But just make sure you keep getting back in there and keep your heart open and keep those friendships and those relationships going. Be whatever they are. Let them be what they need to be.
Yeah.
But just keep it there, keep it open, and utilize it as one of the tools that you have in your tool chest, as we talked about before. I mean, social media can be a huge benefit.
Yeah.
Can be also a deficit. So just be careful.
Definitely can. Yeah.
Yeah, just be careful out there.
Yep.
But definitely, if you do it correctly and really focus on having a positive experience out there, you really can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've done that plenty of times where I've been in that kind of situation, and I've, just kind of thrown myself into, talking with other people or whatever. Just if nothing else as a distraction, which is, why stuff like the suicide prevention hotline and the crisis lines and stuff exist out there. And just because I just want to make sure it's said, you don't have to be in a position of self-harm or that kind of thing to utilize those resources. So, if someone's out there and it's like you said, it's a situation where you're like, oh, my normal support system's not available. Those are definitely there for people for that reason, because we all, sometimes you run into that point where your normal support system, they're all sleeping, or they're, like you said, they're working, or they're away, or just whatever the reason is, so this gives you an opportunity for that as well. So, like I said, it doesn't have to be, that you're suicidal. You can just be going through, just a rough patch and just need someone to talk to.
And one last thing, in order to be completely honest, I did get scolded during this whole thing because somebody saw my message. They shot me a message offline, and they're like, you okay? And so I responded. I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of struggling. I'm having a hard time. Like, I'm sitting here watching TV, and you said nothing.
Yeah.
And my response back was, yeah, I didn't want to be a burden.
Right.
And given the situation that I was in, it makes complete sense, and their response back was, you are never a burden.
Right.
And, I am always available for you.
Yeah.
And which is the exact response that you hope to have from a support system, of course. And it's a response that I knew, but I needed to hear.
Yeah.
And that's really where a lot of things come down to. It's amazing how the lies that we tell ourselves in our minds. And all it takes is for one person to basically blow one of the lies away and just say, in my head was telling me that they didn't want to talk to me because they hadn't reached out to me yet.
Yeah.
That's what my head was telling me. I knew that was not true.
Right.
But I needed an outside source to come in and say, that's not true. This is the truth.
Right.
All of a sudden, once that lie was debunked, all the rest of the lies, I have that weapon now I can use against the rest of the lies to say, look, this one was false. So obviously the rest of these must be false too.
Yeah.
And you're not just, and it opens up that ability to have faith again in other people and not trust your brain.
Right.
It's horrible.
Because you were going through, distorted thinking at that point, because you're predicting what somebody else was going to say instead of asking or whatever and allowing them to say yes or no. It's just that, like you said, when you're in that kind of thought process, though, it's like you don't want to put yourself out there usually for rejection. Whereas putting that post on Twitter, if people respond to you, it's fairly safe to say if you post like that, most of the time you're going to get a response from somebody,
Mm-hmm.
So it's fairly safe that you won't get 0 responses, so
Yeah.
versus asking certain people to where you might get I can't, I'm working or I'm busy or whatever it is, kind of a thing. So it feels like a lower risk way of reaching out, so it's kind of an interesting move.
Yeah, and you're not as invested.
Right.
Because if nobody on the interwebs reached out, so what? It's random people on the interwebs. It's nobody.
Yeah.
But if it's somebody that I'm invested in,
right,
they don't respond back, that's, a nail in the coffin.
Yeah, that hurts. Exactly. That's rejection is the way you read it. Even if it isn't, maybe they haven't seen your text or whatever,
And I will tell you, this goes along with kind of what, there's a great episode of Salty Language called Just Keep Calling. And
number 48.
Yeah, there you go. Number 48. And it goes along with that type of mentality between, friendships and stuff. When you get to that point, it's so incredible.
Right.
I had a conversation with my friend this morning. I just said, I'm like, hey, when you're free later, let's talk. And they didn't wait till later.
Right.
They said, what's going on? They immediately jumped on it.
Sorry, 47.
Oh, sorry, 47.
It was like, as soon as I said it, I'm like, that doesn't sound right. So sorry. Yeah.
And that's, that's what I needed. I didn't know I needed it, but that's what I needed.
Yeah.
They jumped immediately on it. We immediately got right into the meat of what's going on. And they,
it's really funny though, because this is how distorted your brain is at that time, is that we do it that way. We're fishing, even if you don't mean to be. You're totally hoping that they respond sooner than later,
Yeah.
Because if that same person waits a week and says, oh man, my week's been crazy, I finally was, then you feel like you've been put off or not prioritized. If they immediately are like, hey, what's going on? That's what you want. And again, instead of just coming out saying, hey, do you have some time to talk? It's, you're like, if you feel like talking to me, would you please, like you're just kind of trying to minimize the whole thing. It's just funny how our brains warp that to try to essentially put as little of risk on it as possible.
Yeah.
Instead of just flat out asking, hey, do you have some time to talk?
Exactly. And in my mind, I'm like, well, they're at work and, I don't want to be a bother.
Right.
And I don't want to interrupt anything if they're working on something or if they're doing something and, they're so busy.
Yeah.
When they're available and they're free to have a little time, I could just use a little bit of their time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how my mind's framing it.
Yeah.
And that's why this person is part of my support system, because they see all that and they're like, BS, what's going on?
Right.
They call me immediately out on it. We immediately have the conversation. And I made them re-promise to me, even though they've said it many times before, that I made them re-promise. I said, I trust you and I need you to tell me that if I'm ever interrupting you or a bother or you need a break from me or time off, that you can tell me. You have to tell me this.
Right.
And absolutely, if that would ever happen, which is doubtful, but if that comes up, I will tell you. I said, okay. In that way, I said, that's my way of just hearing it combats a lot of that stuff in my head.
Yeah.
Because now, instead of the focus being on me and my brain and what's going on, it's switched to I'm putting this faith and this trust in this person's hands.
Yeah.
I completely relinquishing all of that junk and saying, all right, it is now in your court, and I am trusting you with this so you can handle it.
Right.
It's hard to do, but if you can find those people that you can do that with, that you can trust to that level, it's an amazing feeling.
Yeah.
And immediately when I did that, I felt so much better.
Mm-hmm.
It was something that needed to have happened probably days earlier.
Right.
And I just never got myself to that point.
And that's what happens when we get in those things that's exactly what happens, is we don't really know what we need sometimes, because you don't know what it is that will finally give you that comfort that you need when you're at those points, So it can be really tough to even know what you need to ask for. And that's why, a lot of the stuff we've talked about on here, like articles and stuff, a lot of it will mention about people is like, just be there for them. We don't need, a lot of times we don't need someone telling us what to do. We just need someone to just be there for us, whether it's physically or metaphorically, hey, if I call you, you're there for me, kind of a thing, just to know you have a cheering section,
Mm-hmm.
basically, if nothing else.
Yeah. It just, it means the world. And, as much as you try to make sure that people know how important it is and how much it means to you, you can never say it enough.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why I've said before on here, just talking with somebody, I've heard stories through podcasts or on Twitter or just in life of people who, so-and-so called me and, we went and did this and whatever. And it was like, I was planning on killing myself that day, or I was, and it's not even that it has to be that drastic, but it's just, you really don't know what just being there for somebody might do for them. It may just change everything, you just never know. It's so wild.
Yeah, it really is. But I've got some pretty amazing people in my life.
Yeah.
And I'm very, very lucky, very fortunate.
Yeah. Yep, that was what I told my therapist when I was there last time, about stuff I'd been dealing with and whatever, about how I've understood for a long time how blessed I am for having the support system that I have, because I know a lot of people don't have anywhere near the level of people willing to, help or do whatever they can that I've had. So, I fully get it.
Yeah. So that's been my week. As fun and crazy and up and down it has been. I'm very happy to be back to a normal work schedule and have my normal life going back the way it was. So hopefully going forward, things smooth out a little bit more and, smooth sailing, hopefully.
Right. Well, good. I'm glad you found, some light at the end of that spiral. So, yeah.
I did.
Yeah. Because I fully know how hard it is to find sometimes. So, yeah.
It's crazy. It's like we talk about the spiral being, or at least I do, about the coin game that you put the coin at the top of the funnel and it spins around and around and around, and it gets faster as it goes down. When somebody steps in and gives you the relief that you didn't know you needed, or you didn't know what you needed, and they reach in and they just do it. It's seriously like someone reaching in and grabbing that coin and stopping it immediately and picking it right back up.
Yeah.
It's palpable, the relief that you feel when you get that moment all of a sudden when things break apart and it's like, there we go.
It is.
I can breathe.
Yeah, because it does. It feels so heavy when you're in the middle of it that it is like I've described it, and I know I'm not the only one, but about like having like 1,000-pound gorilla on your chest. It's just you can't lift it, and like you said, just occasionally somebody else comes along and lifts it off of you for you, and you're like, oh, I can breathe, I can get up, I can do these things. So yeah, it's
and they lift it with a pinky finger, for gosh sakes.
Yeah.
Like you struggle to get off of it, and they just walk over and go, going,
well,
it's gone.
Right, because it's one of those where to you it's 1,000 pounds, to them it's 5 pounds.
Yeah,
or it's
exactly.
not even a pound. It's like you said, you just walk over and just basically just flick it and it moves. And for you, you've spent a week trying to move it.
Like, seriously, that's what it took?
Yeah.
That's the answer? That was the key?
Yeah.
Sometimes that's what it happens. You don't know what's going to be the point to give you the relief that you need.
Yeah.
So it's crazy. It's awful, but it's hopefully, cross some fingers, over.
Yeah. Well, and see, and a good thing for anyone listening to learn is realistically, a lot of this is why we're told to avoid drinking while we're on these medicines, because if you're already in any sort of a spiral, it could essentially accelerate it, or if you aren't in it, it could kind of point you toward one, so these are the things that, like I said, for like me, it's like for the most part, I do everything I can to try to stay away from, like, when I feel like I'm starting to go that way, it's like, I gotta, like we gotta do something different here. So it's like, why would, and I'm not saying you, I'm just saying the general you, like, why would you do something that points you toward that, like
Oh yeah. And trust me, it's questions that, me personally have asked myself.
Oh, I have too. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, seriously, you did this again? What are you thinking? You know what happens.
Right.
And
well, I remember having a talk with Heno. We were talking about something, and somebody I know, their doctor told them something, and they did it anyway. And I was like, well, that makes sense, because you've had all that training as a doctor, and the doctor just has no idea what they're talking about. It's like, why would you throw away the expertise of someone just because you think you know best? It's or just because you're like, yeah, but I want to do, so whatever. Yeah. It's, we all do it. I've seen so many examples, I mean, I love my brother, but he had open heart surgery. And then at Christmas Eve, he was drinking rum and cokes, and his doctor, told him, hey, maybe you should quit doing that because you've had open heart surgery. But he's feeling fine now, essentially. So,
yeah,
you know how it is. You start feeling fine, and, I mean, he wasn't getting stupid or anything, but it was still the idea that, we all probably do it at some point or another where a doctor is, oh, don't do this. And we're like, I'm fine,
I got this.
Go back to work 2 days early, quit taking antibiotics before the cycle runs out. Like we all do something, so whatever. It's funny because, usually I'm the one that, like, what you just talked about would usually be what would come out of my mouth.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I basically had a really similar week to you, except for the drinking part of it. So I talked about it on the last episode, how I kind of not in a great place. And that has continued over this last week, that I've been in a really bad place. Like, it's gotten pretty bad. And I actually, the other night, I was sitting here and I was like, I got to get some of this out of my head. And so I wrote the first blog I've written in like 2 years. I didn't realize it had been that long since I'd written anything.
Wow.
And I basically just put it all down, like, this is what's going on. This is why I'm feeling this way. I've been feeling really hopeless, and I have for a long time, that, I've, even though I've been trying to, think positively and do all this other stuff, it's, like I've told you in the past, is celebrating the little wins is great. And I do that. I try as hard as I can with that. But sometimes you need a big win to come along, just to kind of, like, a big win once in a while is like a pat on the back. Like, you're doing the right thing. You're going the right, like you deserve this kind of a thing. This is the reward for the hard work. And it's like, I feel like I'm in one of those points where it's like, a big win would be nice right now just to kind of, help me over a hump a little bit. But I know that isn't how life works. But, I talked before on here about, how I was going to refile for disability, and I talked to a lawyer. You know this. I talked to you about this already, but I talked to a lawyer, and I can't so much do that because of things. Well, as things stand, I am going to go to my psychiatrist and talk with him and kind of see what he says, because I really feel like my conditions have worsened. Even though in certain ways things have gotten better. Like there's certain things where I can function better than I could before, but I'm also noticing that even like a trip into the store just to get medicine is putting my anxiety through the roof. Being in crowds of any kind is really bothering me. Going out of the house is really starting to bother me, and I really feel like, for those who don't know, I have a horrible fear of driving, which also has shown itself as I have a fear of being in vehicles as well. Like, I don't like being in cars for any length of time. The further away from home I get, the more uncomfortable I get. That's gotten worse and worse to where I don't even I don't like going places. And I'm finding myself canceling and making excuses to not do things. So again, as we've talked on here plenty of times before, when something is negatively affecting your life, that's when it's time to go talk to somebody. And that's where I'm at, is the situation that I have and fear of being in cars and different stuff. I didn't realize until a few years ago, I heard on a podcast, someone described that they had that same thing, and it's a form of agoraphobia. Because basically what happens is, in agoraphobia, you don't want to leave your home, right? And for your safe space, basically your circle of safety that you perceive as a safe area, shrinks to where it eventually gets, like this guy talked about how his mom had it too, and she got to a point she didn't even want to leave her bedroom. And I really have felt over the years that my circle has shrunk and shrunk and shrunk and shrunk to where I don't want to leave the house. So I need to talk to my psychiatrist about that kind of stuff too. And so that's where I'm at. But my feelings of stuck, my feelings of hopelessness, a lot of that stuff really were just beating me up bad this week. And writing the blog helped. I was shocked by how many people read it, or at least visited the link, It's, I believe, easily the most looked at blog I've written, which is a little disappointing because I had a couple others that I actually think were good. But anyway, so that made me feel decent, because every person who clicked on, or almost every person who visited, clicked on either a link from my Facebook or from Twitter. And that means that they cared. Essentially, in my head, that tells me they cared enough that they wanted to read on what's going on.
They do care enough.
So that makes you feel decent that there's, that there are people who were looking, because there's nothing for them to gain from it as far as, social media clout or anything. Like retweeting it is not going to gain you followers or anything like that. But, anyway, but during that time, I talked about this on Salty Language, I listened to a podcast called The Hilarious World of Depression. And it's a great podcast. If anyone out there wants a good podcast where they talk about different types of mental health, and they don't just talk about it, like, it's not all negative, and it's like a half hour, 45-minute podcast most of the time, but it's a good listen. But hearing a guy named Mark Duplass, who's an actor and writer and director, talk about how his anxiety and stuff basically was crippling at one point, and he was able to overcome it and still be successful, And then Daryl McDaniels of Run DMC was on an episode, and he talks about how he went through like really, really deep depression and kept having thoughts of suicide and stuff. So hearing people like that, you're just like, oh wow, you know, these people who, you know, you keep getting reminded that depression doesn't care about your social status. It doesn't care about your money. It doesn't care about any of it, or anxiety, mental illness in general, you know, like these things strike, you know, and, you know, so that helped me a little bit. But then I had an interesting thing. I went yesterday for, my testosterone shot, and I was talking with the doctor, and I was like, hey, I have a question. I was like, it's been 3 weeks since I've had my last shot, and usually I go every 2. And I was like, is there any chance that basically I could be having kind of I don't want to say a withdrawal, but like a depression kind of spiral because I haven't gotten my testosterone? And he looked at me and was like, oh yeah. And he's like, you know, he's like, because before you were on this, he's like, think about it, you were depressed before. And he goes, so this stuff pretty much lasts for about 2 weeks. So after 2 weeks, you know, when you get it, you feel a little better. It elevates you, you know. So then when your body, that dips back down, you know, your body you're going to really notice. It's, for the lack of a better term, I'll use when Heno talked about, like when you drink to numb your pain, right? You drink and then eventually your pain goes away, but then when you sober up, it's like, oh, you know, it's still there. And it's right in your face. So I think that's kind of what he was saying, is it's like you come out of this and that good feeling goes away and you're like, oh yeah, you know, like,
yeah.
But I cannot say enough about this doctor. He put his hand on my shoulder and was like, are you okay? Do you need help? And I was, you know, told him about, you know, I'm going to talk with a psychiatrist, and he goes, okay. And he's like, is if you need something, he's like, if I, you know, me or the desk help, you know, like we'll do what we can to help you. And it was like, man, you know, that is what you hope for from a doctor, you know?
Absolutely.
You know, because he's not treating those symptoms of mine, but he immediately was like, are you, you know, are you okay, kind of a thing. And I can't say enough about him. So, but that made me feel a little better, because it's like, okay, well, maybe this has something to do with why I've noticed over the last couple of weeks I've really been kind of ramping up my depression, you know.
Right.
Downside is, it looks like my hemoglobin count is still high, so, you know, going to have to go through another, you know, round of blood work, and hopefully it comes down, because if it doesn't, I'll probably have to go off testosterone for a little bit again. So, but on the other side of that, you know, I was told before that something that can help is donating blood. I've been getting notices from the Red Cross lately that they are in dire need of blood at the moment, because people donate like crazy before Christmas, but then they don't donate after. So anyone listening, you know, go give some blood if you're eligible. But that's the only downside, is that if my hemoglobin is too high, you can't donate. So hopefully it's in the range where I can, because if so, maybe I'll go do that, because it's, whoa, worst case scenario, I've donated some blood, like it takes 20 minutes. Yeah.
Maybe even try for the super red.
Yeah, that I don't think I can do.
Really?
After reading that it's not fun to sit through and it can be kind of painful and stuff, I've heard it's not a fun experience.
Fuck the cookies, dude. Cookies.
Well, they didn't have cookies last time. They had other snacks, but they were out of cookies. So
What?
I got fruit snacks, so I was okay.
Yeah, for snacks are pretty damn good.
Yeah, I had an apple juice and fruit snacks. So
nice. Did you get to go on the swings?
No. I could have, because this is going incredibly local, but it was at the Christ the King Church, and they do have a playground, so I could have went over to the swings. Yeah.
Sorry, I was just thinking recess time
right.
School.
That's what it felt like, yeah. But anyway, I so like I said, my brother and I will probably go do that here soon and whatever. And I feel it's funny because, once I found out what my blood type is and that I'm kind of the universal blood type, I feel guilty when they send out those, we really need blood, and I don't go give because, my blood type is the type that they will take, that they want, all the time, because they can use it for anybody pretty much. So, yeah, I just need to go and, like I said, because it is not hard to give blood, like for anybody who hasn't, if you've thought about it. And no, it's really, the worst part was when they pricked my finger to do the hemoglobin test. That hurt more than the actual blood donation did. Which was weird.
For the most part, I've not had a ton of problems. I'm a little bit difficult because my body doesn't like giving up its blood.
Yeah.
So I have a tendency to stop midway through.
Okay.
Yeah. So because my clotting system is so good, my body's like, nope, not enough.
My problem is that my veins disappear. Like they'll think they find it, and then right before they go to inject, they'll be like, "Where did it go?" kind of a thing. Then they have to hunt for it again, which that can turn into a problem because that can lead to 6 or 7 pokes. But it didn't last time. Also, and don't be scared off by that. Most people don't have that problem, and if you do have that problem, I was told there's 2 things that can really help. One is to mention to them. Or ask them maybe to use a smaller needle. Because when I go up to my doctor's office, the phlebotomist there, she always uses a smaller needle on me, and she never has a problem. And the other thing is to make sure that you hydrate.
Yep, hydrate.
Yeah, yeah. But on the same note, also, if you have to give a urine sample, like at your doctor's office, don't hydrate too much. From what I was told, it can kind of wash out. Yeah. It can alter your numbers or whatever. But anyway, again, I'm not a doctor, blah, blah, blah. Go talk to them about all this stuff. But again, while I'm on the soapbox, if you can give blood, please go give it. They need it. I mean, they need it all the time. It's rare that they're like not in a place for it. Or, you can go to your local hospitals. Like you can schedule blood donation there too. But whatever. So so that's been pretty much my week. Mostly down, but a few ups in there to, kind of help. I will say this though, boy, I was in that urologist's office yesterday, and while I was sitting there waiting, they were real busy, and I got to hear way too much about people that I've never met and stuff that I probably should not know, but because like you're in the waiting room, it's not very big. And people are at the counter and they're talking, and it's like they're basically giving out personal information. I don't mean like address and social security number, but I mean I know about a woman's complications with getting a catheter put in. So that's way more than I needed to know about her.
Yes, I can imagine that.
I felt terrible for her because I saw her walking and it did not look fun. She looked like she was pretty uncomfortable, so yeah. But yeah. So it was just kind of funny though, because I'm like, why don't they pull them back into a room for some privacy? like it's weird.
Where is that?
Although, in fairness, she initiated the conversations.
Oh well, there you go.
So she must not have cared too much that there were like 12 other people in there.
Yeah, some people just, they don't care.
Yeah. Well, at that point, she probably cared more about the uncomfortable catheter she had.
I can imagine that would be an issue. Yeah.
So, yeah, but I don't know.
Well, I don't know. How are we doing on time?
We're right at an hour. So we could wrap it up here if you want to, or we could talk about the other thing, whichever.
Yeah, I think we should probably wrap it up.
Okay.
Because I hate to steal too much of our listeners' time, but...
Yeah, that's fair.
It's one of those things. We had to catch up.
Yeah.
We both had big weeks.
Yeah. We had quite a heavy week. So
yes.
Hopefully this week's later.
Well, folks, if you'd like to continue the conversation with us, we'd love to hear from you. You know what to do. you can reach us. Well, you can reach us at thecrazylifepodcast.weebly.com is our website. The Crazy Life Podcast at outlook.com is our email address. You can reach me directly on Twitter at WhitskyDits, which is the easiest way to reach me. WHITSKEY,
Right.
Dits. You can also, if you want to hear more from me, you can hear me on Shake the Sheets, which is a pop culture talk podcast I do with my co-host Nate. You can find it at all of the normal places. You can also find our website at shakethesheets.com. If you'd like to reach out to Heno and give him a bunch of junk because he wasn't on our podcast tonight.
Yep. That's fair.
You can reach him at Ida Heno on Facebook. And is he still Ida Heno on?
No, he's Heno Heider on Facebook. He's Ida Heno on Twitter.
There you go. See, I got it all messed up. Sorry about that, guys.
Yeah.
So you can reach out to him. You can also catch him on Moving the Needle, which is another podcast that he does, which is absolutely awesome and highly worth the listen.
And they're recording tonight, and I believe their topic is Star Wars, which is an interesting topic. I don't know if they're going to do all the Star Wars or if they're just going to talk about the newest one or whatever, but yeah, definitely go check that out when you can. You can find me on Twitter at Stunami. You can find my other podcast at salty_language or at saltylanguage.com. That show is not safe for work, so be careful, where you listen to it and who's around and all that kind of stuff. If you haven't already, subscribed, please rate, review, and subscribe. You can also find us over on Spotify if you listen to your podcasts and stuff over there. I just read today, apparently Spotify has overtaken Apple for the number one place to people listen to podcasts now, and Spotify has only been doing this for like a few months, so
that's awesome.
Yeah. Or if you want to recommend the show to somebody, that's a great way to get them to listen, because they don't, a lot of people have Spotify, so they wouldn't have to download a new an app or whatever. So there's that. We're part of the Tangent Bound Network, which can be found at tangentboundnetwork.com, and we're part of the Danger Entertainment Network, which can be found at dangerentertainment.net. So please go check those two things out and maybe find some other shows that you dig or whatever. And, as always, if you need help, please reach out. Again, whether it's social media, support group, therapist, friend, crisis hotline type resource, whatever it is, there's all sorts of people and services out there willing to help you. So please utilize them. And there's something pretty much for, if you want to stay anonymous, you can use the crisis hotlines. If you just want to text, there's a text line. It's like there's a lot of places and people trying to make things as accessible as possible. So, please utilize them if you need the help. I forgot what else I was going to say there, so I'll move on. If you get a chance to be kind to somebody, please take it. It is amazing how it is so amazing to me how different stores are now that Christmas is over.
Yeah.
We're in a Walmart today, and every time somebody bumped into someone, oh, I'm so sorry, excuse me. Through Christmas, you might as well have just had cow catchers on the front of the carts and spikes all over them because people just did not care. They were just ramming into people. It was like, Thunderdome out there. But anyway, if you get a chance to help somebody or whatever, or be nice or whatever, please do that, because, we certainly need more of that kind of thing. And, and of course that also includes yourself. Be kind to yourself. Try not to beat yourself up over it. I understand how hard it is. I mean, literally, I spent the last week just tearing myself apart. So I get it. But try to show yourself some compassion as well. And, as I've been saying lately, also make sure that you understand that doing nothing is self-care. Doing nothing is something. So, and that's okay. And also, feeling not okay is okay. But if you feel not okay, make sure you're, make sure you're trying to help yourself in those situations. Especially now that the holidays are over, we all maybe can have a chance to recharge finally and move forward. I know it stressed a lot of people out and ran people down. I actually, I think I heard more people staying in this year for New Year's Eve than I have in years.
Yeah.
I just think so many people were just so done after the Christmas season. So, make sure you recharge your batteries.
Absolutely. With that, go out there, have the best week you possibly can, and as always, wiggle your toes. If you need to know what that means, shoot me a message.